ですね。
And that is the cognitive control regions. So that's usually when we think of ourselves as...
だから認識科学ってここでやってるって言ってるんですよ、彼はね。難しいですね。
Think of myself as Jason. I'm thinking actually just with this part, the person who's doing all of these things and making calculated decision, analytical decisions. This is who I'm thinking about. This is the cold cognition. So the
これコールドコグニッションとなんか専門用語あるんですけど、そこで物を考えたり計算
one who thinks a lot, one who thinks too much. And the hot cognition is more in the back part
ホットコグニッションが後ろの方ですね。感情ですね。
of the brain here, where a lot of scientists associate with the unconscious, and some people associate
無意識の
it with the limbic system of the brain.
リンビックシステムっていうこれ大脳辺縁系、感情などを司る部分、大脳辺縁系だからリンビックシステムですね。大脳辺縁系、大脳辺縁系。
Now the unconscious, the hot system is what makes me do
ホットシステムだから後ろの方がホットで前がコールド。
this. I don't have to think about this. In the same way that once you learn how to write, you don't have to think about writing. You can just do it. Same with the musician who learns how to play music. Once the skill has become embodied,
だから音楽はこの後ろの方のホットコグニッションですね。
it becomes part of their hot cognition. Though they needed a lot of thinking in their cold system to get there, once it
コールドシステムはだから計算するとかそういう考える。
becomes embodied, they can play music effortlessly. This is Zhuang's point. So the skill becomes embodied, and this is a metaphor for how we should live our life. What neuroscientists, neuroscientists use the word down-regulate. So we should down-regulate the sense of self or I in the prefrontal cortex to
プリフロントコルテックス前頭葉、ここね。
get into this flow state, into this wu state of consciousness.
無為、無意。
This state of effortlessness, this state of
中国語なんですね。
無為、無意、エフォートレスネス、無意、英語のエフォートレス。
no force and non-doing. Now Zhuang's because he has a million stories that articulate this a lot. He uses the story of a drunk. So the drunk
ドランクって馬車から落ちる話ね。
is on a cart, and the drunk is coming home. It's a drunken man coming home, and the cart is going very fast. The old carriage is going very fast, and the drunk falls out of the carriage at the high speed, and he just gets up and he's not injured. Now, the meaning of this story, there's a few meanings, but first of all, because he's drunk, he's completely loose. He's completely open. He's not stiff. He's not rigid. Zhuang is not emphasizing alcohol here. He's cleverly using a story that the drunk is loose. There is the scientific aspect of it is when we drink alcohol, for example, we do down-regulate the prefrontal cortex, and we become very loose and more in nature until we start drinking too much, and then we go overboard. But when we have a few, we get into this effortless state where we can embrace anything. We are very open. It's unfortunate some people need alcohol to do that, but he uses the drunk in that sense because the drunk falls off the cart. He's not hurt. He gets up, walks away as if nothing happened. You know, who knows? He may have had a hangover the next day. He may have been a bit sore, but the moral of the story is that because he wasn't stiff and rigid, he effectively was not hurt. Now, the deeper metaphor of this is to be not drunk on alcohol, but what Zhuangzi would say is to be drunk on heaven or drunk on the Tao. So he means that a sage themselves, a sage, not him, he probably didn't refer to himself as a sage, but he's articulating that a sage is drunk on heaven, drunk on the Tao. So why he's saying that, he's saying that the things that harm most people do not harm the sage who is drunk on heaven. You know, so most people who fall out of a cart will probably get hurt, but those who are drunk on heaven can fall out of the cart and they won't be hurt. Not literally, but that's more of a metaphor. So the sage is moving through the world without anything hurting them. They're not affected by anything because they have this effortless state of mind and they are moving through life skillfully, as Butcher Ding's blade was moving through the ligaments and the bones without meeting resistance or obstacles. Now this is one of the key tenets of Zhuangzian philosophy, because Zhuangs were always advocated of having an impartial view of reality, not a partial view, because partial view comes from the sense of I, subjectiveness, you thinking that things are this and that, and so forth and so on. So the sage has a purely impartial view. You know, the sage is not
purely impartial. Impartial というのは公平な、公平を偏らない impartial. Purely impartial view.
hurt by the world, nor are they swayed by people's opinions and what we're supposed to believe. Again,
まあこうやって解説してればね、ついてこれますけど、でもこのままビデオ聞いてると前の解説なかったら何言ってるか分かんないようなところが結構あるんですね。でフランス人はこういうふうな哲学的な発想とか考え方、前もやったようにだからもう一人哲学者出てきましたけど、フランス人はこういう人が結構いるみたいですね。ちょっとまあやっぱ文化ですかね、こういう考え方をするのですね。日本人にはあんまりこういうふうな人はいないと思いますね。
The Zhuangzian point of view is refraining from what drives society.
リフレイン慎む。
You know, because in often cases that what drives society is not really beneficial to us. So his point is here is to have that impartial view. Now there is a story.
Impartial view 偏らない考え方。
In a famous story in China, actually, it's the farmer and son story to articulate this impartiality of reality, thinking about reality not in the sense of logic, but in the sense of the irrational.
Really not in the sense of logic, but in the sense of irrational sphere. Irrational っていうのはですね、道理に一致した馬鹿げた理想体と。
Sphere, like in Zen.
ちょっとね、感情感不合理なとかいうイラッショナルですね。禅ですね、禅。
Now, in this story, the farmer has a horse. Now, the horse breaks through the fence, runs away, and then it's run away and it's gone. And so the people of the village come over and they say, "Oh, geez, how unfortunate you are." And the farmer says, "You know, we'll see." The next day, 2 wild horses come back with his horse.
これ僕の日本語訳では省略しちゃいましたけど、馬が一回逃げたんですね。
And then so he puts them in the barn and so forth and so on. And the people from the village
バーンって納屋ですね。
come around and they say, "Geez, how fortunate you are." And he's like, "We'll see." The next day his son jumps on one of the wild horses and the horse is going crazy, and then the son falls off and breaks his leg. The village people come around, "Geez, how unfortunate you are." And he's like, "We'll see." The next day conscription officers come around.
コンスクリプションオフィサー、徴兵を探す管理ですね。管理人。
Around to each of the houses in the village, and because his son is injured, he can't go to war. So the village, in the end, because all the men go, all the village women come over to see their farmer, and they say, "How fortunate you are." And he's like, "We'll see." And then as time went on, his son developed a limp from this broken leg. So all the
リンプって足を引きずること。リンプ。足を引きずること。リンプ。
all the village women come over to the farmer. How unfortunate you are. And he's like, "We'll see." So then in the end, all of the men who went to war, they all died. So the only 2 men left was the farmer and his son, and so they could keep doing a lot of the heavy labor. They could keep farming for the rest of the community, and then the women come over to see the farmer, and how fortunate we all are that you're still here. And you know what he said? "We'll see." So you see here there's no logical end to the story. This is the point of this story. It's like a Zen koan. There's no logical end to it. If you see it in partiality, you think, oh, geez, how bad it is. His son broke his leg and so forth and so on. But as you see life move on, it's not quite like that. Things change, they mold. Sometimes what we think is a bad situation turns into a good situation. We often know this through self-reflection when we look at our lives.
セルフリフレクションと内省